So Ultimate Wolverine meets the Ultimate Phoenix, and I won't lie to you, it gets a little weird here, but in the midst of this all, we also find out what happened to Charles Xavier and also Magneto. Welcome back to Keepin' It Comic, and we're diving back here into Ultimate Wolverine by Chris Condon with issue number 4. Now, remember from the last issue here that Kitty Pryde had done her best Cassandra Nova impression by sticking her fingers through Ultimate Wolverine's head, which caused him to remember everything. So we pick up on the aftermath of that here, but it's not exactly the way that we expected, because what we first start seeing here are these different color-coded dialogues. The first one says, why? The other one says, is he? Why is he twitching? Another one says, heart rate's increasing. And another one says, get Dr. Prostovich quickly. Now, these different color codings here, let me kind of explain these. The one that you see here with the beige background, the one that first starts off by saying why. If we follow that message here, it says, why don't you remember? And then lastly on this page here, we see the word that says survivor. Now, this here is Ultimate Wolverine remembering. These are his thoughts that are currently going on. And then the other color coded messages here, these are from the scientists that are currently right now trying to take care of the Ultimate Wolverine. And those voices continue. One says, the brain scan is, and the other one says, F the brain scan, just look at him. While another one says, look at the claws, there. But before he could finish, one says he's convulsing. Another one's asking, where's Prostovich, as in Dr. Alanya Prostovich? This is her specimen. And the scientists continue. You can see here that they are frantic, right? They are panicking at the same time. One says, maybe we should call the guards. Another one says his brain is lighting up. Is he looking at me? Another one's like, no, he's sedated. He's not looking at. Another one says, holy crap, he is. We need more. We should get the guards. Whoa, would you look at these EEG readings? The thing that's also crazy here is in the background of these voices, we're seeing animals attacking each other. We see this wolf in the background. And as we continue on here, it's very reminiscent of the first appearance that we saw of Wolverine back in the 616 universe. You can see those yellow golden eyes here of this wolf that is tracking something in this mountain. But the scientists' voices, they continue. They're like, his eyes there. And another one says, where are the guards? Aren't we supposed to have guards here? I've never seen him like this before. Is he hurt? It sounds like he's in pain. Can we get sedation? He's pumped full of enough sedative to knock King Kong off his feet. We need guards. And another one's like, yo, where the F is Prostovich? But then Wolverine is remembering it. Not only is he a survivor, he's also a soldier. And the scientists continue on. They're like, oh God, look at the heart rate. Check the other. Well, another one says he's going into cardiac arrest. We need to. Another one says, why the bleep is he staring at me? Get him out of the chamber. Another one says, no, we can't. And then they start arguing with each other. One says he stays in the chamber until we have the guards. Another one says there's no time. You want to explain this to Rasputin's if he dies? And then he replies, he's like, I don't care. Have you seen what he did to Andreev? Well, another one points out his claws. And they continue on. They're retracting there. So then one says, he's like, I'm opening the chamber. And dude's like, no, absolutely not. And Ultimate Wolverine remembers again. He's like, Hunter. So the scientists, they continue to argue. They're like, yo, you want to kill us all? Another one with reason is like, this man may die. We need to. But then one realizes that his heart rate is dropping. His blood pressure is also bottoming out too. They realize that they need to administer some medical. The one who's terrified cuts him off and is like, this is crazy. I can't. The dude's like, bro, if you don't like it, leave. But you need to answer for it. I think you know that. But then they realize, they're like, yo, how much sedative did you pump into this chamber? And they realize, hold on. So then one says, we administered 800 milligrams of phenobarbital. So dude's like, what? Are you trying to kill him? And dude's like, yo, it's what we've been giving him. And Wolverine remembers he's a specimen. So with this new information of the 800 milligrams, dude's like, yo, open the chamber now. But the scared one is like, wait, just wait. Where are the guards? We need the guards. But the other one, thinking smartly, is like, okay, then activate a sentinel unit. And I'm like, okay, we haven't seen sentinels yet. I want to see what these ultimate sentinels look like. And the voice chimes in and says, we can't. Dr. Prostovich has the access key, while Wolverine remembers he's an animal. So then one continues on and is like, yo, I'm opening the chamber. Keep an eye on his vitals. One calls out the claws, while the scared one again is like, what the? He's looking at me again. Just like, by the way, how you should look at that like button and touch it so that you can help this video to reach a wider audience. Go ahead, look and touch. So the voices continue on. It's like, who is going to get him? Heart rate's increasing. The EEG brain function is his hands. Look at his hands. He's returning to normal. Then close the chamber now. So now we know that the chamber has been opened. So one says Dr. Prostovich is en route. But then the scared one again is like, for God's sake, look at his hands. And then Wolverine remembers that he's relentless. Now at this point, it looks like the chamber has been opened, because when I asked, he's like, yo, can we shut the chamber? But before you can get a response, one says, look out! While the other one screams, emergency lock, hit the emergency. So what has happened at this point is that he's gone through the chamber, and to secure themselves, the scientists have now locked themselves in a room. So at this point, what has happened here is that they've emergency locked the doors. So the Wolverine, the ultimate Wolverine, is trapped behind the doors, and they believe that they're secure because one even says, oh, calm yourself, he can't get through. While one recalls that this never happened to Ursus or Krylenko or Petrovna. But it's in this moment where the heart rate for the ultimate Wolverine starts to increase again. So they try to sedate him again. One of the scientists calls out and says that we're in lab at HK 180. We need the guards now. And they start to pump him again with another 600 milligrams of phenobarbital. But that's not stopping the ultimate Wolverine. He continues to keep going as he remembers himself as a hunter, an animal. And this time the ultimate Wolverine has broken through the glass. But we can see from the text here that the ultimate Wolverine is now face to face with the scientist. As one asks, why is he looking at me again? And he realizes that he's about to pop his claws. And one of the scientists remembers that this was supposed to be a routine. He's still not moving. But then in that moment, the ultimate Wolverine makes his move. As one calls out, move, we need to evacuate. And then in the next moment, he reports, he's just killed. And one mentions the blood. Another one calls out for the guards. And when the guards come in, he tries to thank him, but then the ultimate Wolverine continues to kill. And this time he kills the guard. Another one calls out that they need sentinel units. One tries to plead, no, please. But the ultimate Wolverine is relentless. And one calls out that they can't stop him. And Wolverine remembers he's a survivor, but he's also a killer. And one of the scientists calls out and says, shoot him. But then in that moment, that's when Dr. Prostovich finally shows up. And she says, I'm sorry, I'm late. But then she looks around and she sees, and she's like, what the is going on? So she tries to call out to the Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier, stop, I command you. While one of the scientists says, where's my hands? But Dr. Prostovich says, I can control him. Winter Soldier? As the ultimate Wolverine starts to remember his name, Logan. And when we finally get to see the ultimate Wolverine and what the scientists have been talking about this entire time, all we see is a bloodbath. Scientists, guards, he laid them all out except for one or two, with Dr. Prostovich right there. And then that scientist, I was like, yo, where's my hands? So Dr. Prostovich says, Sputnik. And that stops the Winter Soldier in his tracks. She's like, good, very good. Guards, chain the hands. And I'm like, is that something that's safe to do? As he asks, he's like, are you sure of that? So she's like, do as I say. So they quickly go and chain up his hands. And then she tells them to follow her. Now, another one of her colleagues is like, yo, I was under the impression that the Winter Soldier was controlled. But then Dr. Prostovich mentions, she's like, something happened on his last mission. Something in its brain. Maybe a chip got fried. She mentions how we need to reestablish control and how she could not survive another. But her colleagues is like, control, doctor? The sedatives do nothing. He's wild. And it's in this moment where we hear her say, I am not talking about sedatives. And she says, I am talking about her. It's never been 1 point of control, she mentions, but 3. sedatives, re-education, and then manipulation and telepathy. One levee breaks, another holds. Whatever tether is still there, we must have her reinforce it. Doctor, if you're talking about who I think you're talking about, her colleague says, the use must be sanctioned. And Dr. Prosovich is like, listen, I will ask for forgiveness later. And we can see where she's going because as she puts in her card, it says a destination cerebellum, code K7M9. And her colleague doesn't really like this too much because he's like, yo, a tight enclosed space deep beneath the earth with this monster? Like, I'm not feeling it. And then when they step in, we see what looks like Cerebro. As she says, careful, watch your step. And her colleague says, listen, I've never been this deep inside the Kremlin. And she continues on. She's like, be glad that you have it, because good things do not happen here, Sergey. Not at the center of Earth. And as they go further and deeper in, we see her say, wait a moment. It's been a while since I've been here, but... And as she says that, we begin to see this red hair in the background. And she continues on by saying, she's like, here is the solution to your problem, Winter Soldier. Whatever you did out there nearly severed our link, but we can fix that. She can fix that. And what we see here is the Ultimate Phoenix, and they call her the Phoenix Specimen. But on top of the Ultimate Phoenix, we see this brain, and we're not entirely quite sure whose brain that is. But Dr. Prosovich says, she's like, she will fix your broken mind. But now, as to who that brain is up top, that's on top of Phoenix, we get more insight on that based on this letter. Now, this letter here is a transcription of private dictation logs of Dr. Ilanya Prosovich. And she mentions here, she's like, a few notes on Cerebellum, Xavier, and Phoenix Gray. The Charles Xavier body remained in a freezer beneath the Kremlin for some years after his death under the purview of Directorate X. Nobody quite knew what to do with it. I had read the files concerning the Xavier specimen and found them to be captivating. Between Eric Einhard and the so-called Magneto specimen, and they could have controlled the world. Their powers seemed to be boundless, beyond imagination. Thus, they were deemed Omega level mutants. None of this class currently exists. And I'm like, wow. And the one known specimen who does reside in Republic control, there was strangely very little written about Xavier, Einhard, or Omega level mutants. But what little there is, I have used to further my studies on Homo Superior and their further application for weaponization in service of the Eurasian Republic. I received proper clearance, of course, and proceeded to remove the brain from the Xavier specimen's body. It seems that in life, Xavier's body was tragically weak, while his brain was, in turn, massively powerful. If it was preserved well enough, I figured that I could use that powerful brain for Republic purposes. We also had in our custody the Jean Grey specimen, who we have nicknamed the Phoenix specimen, in reference to her latent abilities and possible extraterrestrial possession. I covered this extensively in the Phoenix designated file. See also the Poltova accident. However, the Phoenix specimen is so extremely powerful, it is a necessity to keep her fully sedated and controlled at all times, confined to the cerebellum. She is fed and hydrated intravenously with the minimum essentials to survive. Due to her inactivity, her muscles have atrophied to such an extent that it renders her body useless. Even if she, this all-powerful figure, did break free from the cerebellum, how could she escape when her legs would surely not carry her? And I'm like, okay, I see what you're setting up here. The Phoenix specimen necessitated a certain amount of suggestion, as she must remain in a sedated state. It occurred to me that they may be able to utilize the Xavier specimen to control her further, hoisting the Xavier specimen, rather its disembodied brain, high above the Phoenix specimen in the cerebellum. We allowed it to soothe, direct, and amplify the Phoenix specimen's abilities through targeted electrical impulses. It is the perfect system, really. We control her, and she, in turn, controls the designated specimens. Further amplification is provided by spherical shell of the cerebellum itself. We have thus far utilized the Phoenix specimen to control the Ursus, Krylenko, and Petrovna specimens to varying success. Where we had our greatest success has been with the Winter Soldier specimen. She seems to calm him in a way the others do not experience. Of course, Jean Grey would, right? And she continues on by saying, I shall look further into this anomaly. So now there's a little bit of a callback here to the Ultimate Universe All-in-One special here where we learned about Nick Fury. At the very end of it, we did get to see sort of the origin story here of the Ultimate Wolverine. In that issue, we saw what they mentioned here as someone who could control the Ultimate Wolverine. And in a small little snippet, we saw a bald head. So initially we thought that may have been Charles Xavier. It turns out it probably was Charles Xavier when he was alive at the time. And since then, they have now taken his brain and they're using it with Jean to amplify her power. So Charles is dead. Magneto, we don't know anything about. The Phoenix is basically rendered useless except for her mind, but they're dropping some hints that may not be the case, right? Because they think that, oh, because her body, because she can't walk, that she won't be able to regain her strength. But I can't wait to see when that comes out. So what do you guys think here about this particular issue? I will say this was very different, and I would have preferred for a lot of the narration that they gave in the very beginning part here of it, like for the first half, I would have much preferred if they were actually showing us what happened. It's kind of the same thing that we always talk about with the MCU movies, right? Show us, don't tell us. That would have been great in my personal opinion. With that being said, I'll let them cook. What are your thoughts? I would love for you to leave it down below in the comments. Also, leave a like here on this video for the YouTube algorithm. Also, subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. Check out our other links that are down below in the description here where we can join our Patreon, which is another way that you can support the channel here, even if it's just our lowest membership that we have, which is just $1 a month. Also, Keepin' the Comment does have some new merch here on the channel as well. So go check that out below. Our store is also available if you go to our homepage as well. We appreciate you watching. And as always, thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin' the Comic. Bye.